Are you a leader, manager, entrepreneur, business owner, or knowledge worker? Are you leading people or wondering how to be a better leader in your own life and work? If you are, then you can be experimenting better. Welcome to The Experimental Leader, a podcast that takes a look at the ways leaders are experimenting in their own work. Hosted by Melanie Parrish, we dive into real-life conversations about how people might be using a scientist's mindset and experimenting in their work. Shift your leadership into something that works better. Join us on The Experimental Leader today.
Hello, it's so exciting to be with you here live today. I've been thinking a lot about how leaders present themselves to the world. I have clients who come to me because they want to up their game, probably because they want to change jobs, make more money, those kinds of things. And so I've been spending some time, looking at resumes, and all that's fine. That's fairly traditional in the world of job search and all of that. But one of the things that I've been doing that I think is really interesting is helping people understand their own values and understand what their stance is that they can go and talk to a prospective employer about. So what are they bringing to the employer that doesn't already exist? How can they talk about something in a way that the employer really understands it in a new way, that they bring something to the job conversation. And it may be that they don't get the job, but they will have taken a stand for something that's important. They will have informed the job. And I almost think of it as what something that Arnie Mandel might call world work, that you're actually moving the world into thinking differently because of what you bring to a conversation. And an interview is a conversation. And so I love this work. I love this idea that by getting deeper into your own thinking, you can actually be taking a stand for something during a job search process. And this doesn't happen in a job that's, things are known, but in leadership it does, because things are unknown in leadership. And so it can also be done in the job that you're in. And so you can start to figure out what are the principles that you want to bring to the role that you're in. And so I really challenge you to start to think about this. It's not a fast, like, hey, by next week, know what all your leadership principles are, but what makes you the leader that you are? And how would people know it? What are the behaviors you do that show the principles that you have as a leader? So I've been thinking about, this is, sort of what I've been thinking about in my work lately, and even over the holiday. And it's pretty interesting stuff. And I'm super excited about our guest today. We have a very exciting guest. Her name is Randi Roberts. She's an MBA and a PCC, a professional certified coach from the International Coach Federation. And she is the president of Corlin Roberts Coaching and the founder of Fulfilling Career, Happy Life Community. And she's an executive and career life coach, and she helps people love their work as they achieve their career goals. She's seen too many people develop solid career plans, put a tremendous effort over many years at significant sacrifice, and then achieve their goal only to find that they might not be as satisfying as they had hoped. I'm super happy to have Randi on my show today. Welcome to the show, Randi.
Thank you, Melanie. It's really nice to be here with you today.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. And we're also doing book club on the Experimental Leader podcast right now. So we're talking about the Experimental Leader book. And this month, which is a short month, and it's kind of a difficult chapter, The Intense at All Levels, And I'd love to get your take. I know that you looked at this chapter, and I'd love to get your take on it, and then I could read a little bit of it as well. What were your thoughts as you were? I always like asking leaders because they always are like, yeah, and it made me think of this and this or whatever. I don't know what you'll say, but what were your thoughts?
It made me think of a lot of things, actually. The intent is very connected to something that's very important to me in my work. And in fact, it was in the introduction that you used for me, which is people that may work very long and hard towards a very specific career goal and may get into it and it's not necessarily the right thing for them. And that kind of goes to something that chapter 4 made me think about with intent itself, where intent is really, what you want to achieve, I don't even want to use the word goal, what it is you want to achieve for yourself. And it puts you in a very nimble framework versus a plan that can be a little more structured and it's focused, but it may put you into a little bit more reactive mode. So bring it back to your career. There are people that I've worked with back when I was in corporate, certainly, and as clients now, that may have a very specific job in mind. And sometimes we work towards these jobs for 20 years. I mean, I always knew I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I always knew I wanted to be a franchise head. I wanted to lead sales and marketing to bring them together. But had I thought, no, I want to be franchise head in this particular area, it would have led me to something that by the time I got there may not have been the right thing for me. Whereas if I had thought more broadly, more my intent was, wait a minute, from a commercial standpoint, bring the sales folks, the sales effort and the marketing effort together so that they're informing each other, learning from each other, and things are actually getting implemented. So if I had had that sort of greater intent in mind versus a very specific goal, I'd be more likely to be satisfied, land in the right place when I got there. So long answer to your question.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer, and it's exactly why intents, I believe, are important. When I was working with PR, when my book came out, they said, what are some of the things you say that are outrageous? And I don't really say things. I mean, I say some things that are outrageous, but mostly at cocktail parties and when my husband starts nudging me and saying it's time to go home. But one of the things is that I don't like strategic plans. And I don't like strategic plans because by the time you get to step 3 on the strategic plan, the entire landscape has changed if you've already implemented step 1 and step 2 and time has passed. So intents allow that nimble framework that you intend something to happen, but you revisit it and you can have a new intent. If you do a 5-year strategic plan, you should revise it every year because your new current reality will change every year. And so your plan will be stale after you implement the first year and your organization will no longer have the same needs. So maybe I'll read a little bit from the book right now, rather than just talking, although it would be interesting just to talk to. Intents are exactly what they sound like, what you aim to have happen, different from a plan, which is specific about the future and explicitly outlines how a goal will be met. An intense path toward a desired outcome is intentionally undefined. It tells what will be accomplished, but leaves space for others to determine the how. This is so that feedback and incoming information can be integrated into the work to meet the end goal. Intents follow the structures of the vision, mission, and values of the organization and address its work on a day-to-day timeline. So in the framework that I use, but they're not mine, they're a lot of what I use around intents come from The Art of Action by Stephen Bungay. But his is all war metaphor. And I thought people might like another framework that isn't a war metaphor. So I included them in my book and then included other things around mission and vision that sort of dovetail in. But the idea is that there's a strategy layer of an organization that sets the strategy, and then there's organizational intents below that, and then there's tactical intents below that. And that a good organization will have someone setting the strategy in collaboration with those who are doing the operations of the organization. So the operational intent is just below that. And the person setting the operational intent will be looking up and down to the strategy and the tactics. And then the people who are setting the tactical intents will be doing that in collaboration with the operational level of the organization. So it's like a woven, it's a woven tool where people are communicating about the intents, but without a plan that takes years of meetings in order to do, which then becomes obsolete the day it's written. So there you go. That's my take on intents. But I do think they're difficult, but so are strategic intents. Like it's a strategic plan. So it's they're not any more difficult. I think running a strategy through an organization is a difficult concept. And I love the idea of flexibility, especially around organizations that innovate, because you don't know what will happen day to day.
Absolutely. And it allows for space. I mean, the whole premise of your book about having an experimental mindset in terms of being willing to test some things and learn from it and adjust. And so you have to have sort of that flexibility built into your culture, I think. And the work that I do with clients often takes that same thinking into their career planning. Mine the learning from what you've done, what lights you up, what works for who you are now, and then test some things and be willing to adjust. It's not necessarily, people usually have what we call a career plan. But I often advise taking your career more in 2-year chunks than what's the job you want to retire from, because you are trying things on and seeing what fits and potentially making some changes. And then if something happens, it's out of your control. Companies restructure, people get let go, all of that. You have that mindset from the beginning of, well, I was going to have to pivot at some point. This isn't the earthquake it could be if I plan to stay here my whole career, and you're better able to shift. I think that nimble mindset, and that until I read your book, I never thought about bringing an experimental model to leadership. It's kind of the way I think naturally because I have a scientific mind, but I think it really works. One question that I had, Melanie, because as I was reading, it occurred to me, what's the possible downside of not having a strategic plan? And I kind of got to thinking about accountability within an organization, and an organization that's really hierarchical, and how maybe it's harder to hold people accountable in a world of intents versus strategic plan. It seems to me a problem worth working through, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think accountability is really a problem in organizations anyway. So maybe I think that when you say that, I go, yeah, that might be a problem with intents, but the problem is true either way, because holding someone accountable to a plan that doesn't make sense is also difficult. So you might want things not to happen. I think that meaningless work is a problem no matter how you do it. And a strategic plan, I really don't like strategic plans.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
I really don't like them. I feel like somebody in the organization is going to be there like going, you didn't do your part in the strategic plan. And they're going to be like way more tied. So there's just no emergent process with a strategic plan. And that's fine if the organization is really that staid and boring that nothing changes year after year. But then why did you need a plan in the first place? Because you were trying to do something. They don't feel like they fit our time. They feel like they fit like consultants who want to charge a lot for strategic plans, but they don't fit nimble organizations who are innovating.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think there's an element of that might be more of a check the box. We've got this done for the year Now we can move on to the next thing. And that may shut down a growth mindset and that openness that you need to learn.
No, I think the same thing that people benefit from with creating a strategic plan is that everyone comes together to talk about it. If you set the intents in that way, or you had a conversation about what you want to have happen in your organization, the plan is the least valuable part of the whole thing, but it's what people believe is what they should do. So they invest in the process. So if they would invest in a different process, which is, hey, can we all come together to talk about what we want to have happen this year? That feels too nebulous to people. So the strategic plan has become the touchstone for how we talk about that. But I think we have other things we could do to have those conversations, because I think those conversations are earth-shatteringly valuable.
Yeah. It occurs to me that one of the things, because my career was in big pharma companies, and the strategic plan process it had its own gravity. It was an important process. What came out of it, the plan did not get implemented the way it was laid out, to your point. But what came out of that was the resources we got from senior management to bring in our business for the next year. So it was almost, maybe it did go back to check the box. I think there's a lot of layers. If a company was to move more to intents, there would be a lot of things that need to change around that.
Yeah. And what you're speaking to is a budget allocation is an operational intent from my point of view. So, hey, we know we want to grow our business in this area in such and such territory. We're going to allocate X number of dollars to that territory to invest in. To me, budgets are all about operational intent. We intend to grow here. We're going to budget here. We intend this to happen. Mm-hmm. So you're not in an operational intent. You're not saying exactly how you're going to apply it. Like you're going to spend X dollars on social media, because that's at the tactical intent. Because if Facebook changes their algorithm, you want to be able to have the flexibility to reallocate your dollars at the tactical level, but you do want to budget the amount so that you can decide. And then some dollars, if Facebook changes their algorithm and the dollars don't get spent, you want to be able to reallocate those dollars on the ground during that year and reallocate to another territory or to another spend or something else, because you intended to grow in a certain way, but you decided to use them differently.
Yeah, it's a great point. It just occurred to me that, like, connected to the work that I do of helping people love their work while they're achieving their career goals, it goes so much to alignment with their values, which some change to some extent over time. And living in the world of intent, I know that at the base of that pyramid, values is certainly there. But take that aside from the pyramid and the leadership stand for an individual in managing their own career and their own happiness. Talking intents can help them connect it to their values a little bit more and maybe know more quickly whether they're in the right place or not.
Well, and even just living your life in a way that you're, fulfilled is an intent. At the very base of it, like, I'm not living my life in a way that I'm going to maximize income for my family. I'm living my life in a way that we're going to meet our bills and I'm going to seek fulfillment. There's like getting those statements right in your head is deciding what you prioritize. And those we do this all the time. We just don't do it. We don't know that that's what we're doing, but we could all choose careers that are more money minded or more, that we could sell our souls. But we find the juxtaposition in career between doing work we love. I feel like my whole stake in the ground for my whole career can be framed by, I want people to love their work. So I feel this alignment with you, and no competition at all, because there are so much work in the world in this area.
Trust me, we need both of us and more.
And more. Yeah. Just like there's not enough people in the world to do this work. And so I just feel this alignment around, like, I want people to love what they do, all the time, not all the time. They're not always going to, but Most of the time, I want them to at least have the choice of loving their work every day.
Absolutely. And something you said sparked an idea for me too when you talked about people who may be solely money motivated and making tons of money as their priority. And for some people that is right, maybe in their whole career, but what I find, my clients will come to me maybe at different phases in their career, different seasons, if you will. And making money may have been really important early on when they're building their career and their family and kids in school and all those things. And then later on, they start to realize that, wait a minute, maybe that's not the most or the only important thing anymore. For me personally, I know one of my missions, I guess, has always been I need to do some good while I'm doing well. And so that's one of the reasons pharmaceuticals was so exciting to me, all the good we do for patients. And now in my second career, owning my own coaching business, the good I do is helping other people achieve their goals. And it's tremendously satisfying. So it almost goes to intent. My intent is to do some good while I'm doing well. The doing well part is a little more clear, but the doing good part can look different at different times in my life, but I need to have it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that people, if they're not living within whatever their set of values is, whether it's money or not money or whatever, if they live outside of that, they're more susceptible to burnout. So there may come a day where they can't just push themselves through. So they wake up one day and they just can't go anymore. Or they have a life event of some kind and they just can't quite get their feet. And those are really scary times for people. Yeah. I was working as a mortgage broker years ago. I mean, this is over 20 years ago. And I ended up getting divorced and I just couldn't do the work anymore. My soul didn't want to do the work. And it's when I found coaching. I wanted to be doing something that mattered in the world in a different way. And for me, it wasn't that. And I just couldn't do it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I couldn't go and build the business in the way that I'd always been a top producer. I just couldn't anymore. And so I changed careers. And luckily I found coaching, but it was interesting to find that out about myself. I couldn't push through.
Yeah. Well, and that goes right to like what I mean about when your career starts to itch, you got to scratch it. Like for you, it was a major life event that happened and, your career starts to itch. I mean, another way that I think about it is like you go from jumping out of bed in the morning to hitting the snooze button. You have to pay attention to those things that are coming up for you and do something about them. For you, it was a major career change. For other people, it may be making a change right where they are in their career, but that's why the values and that inner work is so important. Because if something is missing, isn't fitting right with your career anymore, you have to get to the bottom of what the issue is to know if you're fixing the right problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love doing that work.
What do you say to people who, have been loyal to a company and then get downsized? That's in the news right now. I think I almost think that tech people are cynical and plan for it. I just had a conversation where, the I Can Quit fund was mentioned with one of my clients. He's like, oh,
I have a little more crude name for it, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, feel free to use your name. I love swearing on my podcast, but so I think the tech industry sort of plans for this, but other people don't. And they're shocked by it because they've been loyal to a company and then they get downsized sometimes at inconvenient times in their lives. What do you say to them as they come to you trying to right their worlds?
It's a really important question. And for most of us that have had long corporate careers, some version of that has happened. Yeah. And so the first thing that I would say is there is no shame associated with it. It's important to figure out how you want to tell that story and figure out what you want next. But the first thing is kind of to deal with the feelings around it. so that you can get yourself into the right mindset to interview well. And even before that, figure out what it is you want. It's normal to feel angry, hurt, all of those things, but it happens to a lot of us. So, it's interesting. I had a session with a client earlier today who had recently been downsized and was going through that. And one of the things that I talked to her about was I really encouraged her to be open to the fact that this might be the best thing that ever happened to her.
Yeah.
But she can't know that today. She, to the whole thought of an experimental leadership mindset, she doesn't have the proof of it today. So rather than judge it, stay curious and find the ways that it might be the best thing. It's an opportunity to think about what you want next. And it's hard because we all want to be making these major decisions for ourselves. We don't want someone else to make them for us. But I think knowing that you're not alone, taking the moment to figure out what it is you want next and being open to the fact that it may end up being a really good thing, that can really help you. And reach out, like talk to people, tap into your network. It's amazing how much that can help. When people get into their own heads too much, our thinking can get insular. So obviously I have a bias towards working with a coach, not because I am one, but because I see the importance of it. I have my own coach, but just talk to somebody so you get out of your own head, share your ideas, get their perspective. It really helps unlock things.
Well, and I also think that it's you can't underestimate the strength of emotions in times like that. I had one client who was essentially leaving a career that she had loved, and it was devastating to her. And I actually sent her away for a month. She had contracted with me. I had actually asked her to go back to her employer and ask for funding for us, and she had secured that. So it wasn't a lack of money or anything else, but I just said, you need to take a month. And, I really highly suggest you just give yourself time to grieve before we start trying to find a path forward. And I think that's really important as well. Like sometimes it just takes some time. And I have seen clients who don't take that time, settle for jobs too quickly. They don't dream. They can't dream yet because they're trying to fix something as opposed to dreaming something up. And I don't think that they benefit from that. They may benefit if they're trying to feed their children, that's fine. But if they have any kind of financial stability where they can give themselves the time to heal, to walk in the woods, to go swim, to, depending on the season, to care for themselves, and I believe that it's worth that time in the interim to heal a little bit.
I think what you're saying is really wise. And so in the times when clients have come to me with that kind of a situation, all right, let's figure out the fundamentals here. Financially, can you take a little bit of time off? Figure out what that looks like. And then for a lot of reasons, how much time would be the right time? Like how much time do they think they need to heal, get past it, do the things they've been neglecting in their lives? And so this one client that comes to mind, he's like, I want to take off the summer. It was 2 more months of the summer. Great. Then what we decide, he was feeling uncomfortable that he wasn't, in his words, doing anything. He wasn't moving forward with his plan, his job search. He's always been busy. What's he going to do? So what we did was, part of his plan was he's taking 2 months off. He can think about things, he can journal a little bit, but he didn't have to take any action until after Labor Day. And so if he ever started feeling guilty that, oh my gosh, I'm out of work, I'm not searching, he could, wait a minute, nope, the plan is I'm not doing this until after Labor Day. And so like it's a silly game those type A's of us play, in that, no, this is part of the plan. I have a plan, and the plan is no actions taking place for this length of time. That mindset, it seems like such a silly thing. It makes a difference. It really does.
I think it makes a huge difference. What else makes a difference? As you know, in what else do you? How else do you help clients? What do they think about? What's important to you and your clients as they do this?
Yeah, I love that question. It's interesting because 5 years ago, when I went through my coach training and totally changed gears, opened my own business, I thought it was going to be this. I thought it was going to be solely focused on career. What's my next move? How do I get there? And what I've realized more and more is it's about mindset, it's about values, it's about what's inside. And you have to get in touch with that a little bit first. And for some of my clients, that feels a little woo woo. It feels a little loose because it's not as directly tied to what's their next career move. But it's the foundation upon which you make the right decision. As you said, so you don't jump at the wrong job, because what I know is that I work. This is who I am. That's how I identify myself. So, if I'm right that an earthquake like that in your career can be the best thing that ever happened to you, it may be up to us to find the meaning for ourselves and to do that work and to make sure, check in. Is this time for a big career pivot, or should I stay the course? So I think, those are some of the things that are important there. And I find the work over the last 5 years, the work I do with clients has evolved a bit and included more of the values and mindset and what do I really want and what makes me happy, the stuff that doesn't feel like it's directly in the lane of career decisions, but it so is. And I think, as that has evolved, I think my clients are making more meaningful transformations in their work with me and really ending up in the place that suits their intent, even if it didn't suit their plan. So just, you know, it's very motivating to see them make those changes.
Mm. How are you experimenting in your life and your work right now?
Oh, I love that question. And it in a couple of different ways. So the way I manage my business, look, after a 30-year corporate career where I was crushed by the weight of the hierarchy to some extent, which is one of the reasons why I got out of it in the end, I now run my own business. I have people working with me and supporting me, but I get to make the decisions. And so what I do is, and you may not, you may rally against this, but I do have a strategic plan for my business. But really what it's based on, what do I want to accomplish? So maybe it is more of an intent. And I take a look at how can I play with my business to better meet the needs of my clients. So for example, my one-on-one coaching client roster has been fairly full the last 2 years. I can take new clients when someone rotates out, but some of my clients work with me for years. But I knew I wanted my impact to be bigger. I wanted to help more people. So I formed a coaching group last year, and that was shaped in a certain way. For this year, I've shaped it in a different way. It's more a hybrid of one-on-one coaching with the group dynamic, because I think that will better meet the needs of my clients. So that's available now. It's an experiment, and I'm totally open to changing it if there's ways that I find, if I get data points that shows that something else will better serve my clients. So, and also aligned with that intent of playing bigger, I have my own podcast, Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, which is my business mantra. And I'm, happy to be invited to guest on podcasts like yours so that I can sort of, expand my impact a little bit. So those are some ways that I experiment with my own business. And it's what keeps it interesting and fresh for me, in addition to better serving my clients.
That's amazing. And I don't mind if you call your strategic intent a strategic plan.
How do you experiment with your own business, Melanie?
Well, I also have been, like, my practice is also full. And so experimenting with sort of one-to-many models has been what I've been doing for years. So we have a program for emerging leaders. And so that's our experimentation. We keep doing the same different experiments to bring that to market and to to keep finding our clients for that over and over again. And so we work on that a lot. In fact, we have some amazing webinars coming out that we're experimenting with around imposter syndrome. So we're excited about that. And if anyone wants to be on our mailing list, so you get those, send me an email at melanie@experimentalleader.com, and we'll make sure you find out about those free webinars.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is an important topic. And that's whether someone, the way my business works, if someone's interested in working with me, we do a complimentary session to get a feel for each other and talk about what that's like. And whether imposter syndrome, those words come up during that session or not, that concept will come up during our work together, because I think so many of us experience some degree of that. I certainly did. So that's great. I'm glad to hear you're doing that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and we're really excited about it. So we're going to start talking about it more. So that's our big experiment for 2023, is to be helping people around imposter syndrome more.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me. One of the best ways to find me is through my website, which is Corlin Roberts Coaching, CORLIN Roberts, ROBERTS coaching.com. And on my website, you can find links to my podcast, Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, as well as some other resources like a career satisfaction assessment. And you can get on my mailing list, which I'd love to see people. You can find me on YouTube. Anywhere you find Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, you put that into a podcast, YouTube, wherever, you'll find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure to get to talk about career with you. I think we love so many of the same things. It's just really been a joy for me to get to meet you.
Thank you, Melanie. It was my pleasure.
If you'd like to learn more about how focusing on bottlenecks can transform your own leadership, check out my book, The Experimental Leader. You can get a copy at book.experimentalleader.com. I think you can magically transform your leadership by spending more time focusing on your bottlenecks and less time focusing on your challenges.
Well, this was a fascinating day at the Experimental Leader podcast. I really love talking to Randi, and I'm really thinking about career development, both in the time that you're in a career. Is it the right place for you? What do you intend for your career? And then if you decide to leave, how do you intend to leave? What do you intend to create for yourself? It's been lovely being with you today. Go experiment.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Experimental Leader. We hope you have found value in today's episode, because we're dedicated to helping you become the experimental leader you want to be. To access the show notes or learn more about working with Melanie, visit melanieparish.com. Go experiment.